they used to see min lights up there too.
Right.
And floating spook lights. But that area is noted. That's practically min headquarters up there.
Sorry to interrupt, Tony.
Yeah.
Can you please explain for listeners who aren't aware what min lights are?
Well, they're what they call in some areas jack-o'-lanterns or spook lights. You know, these lights that people see at night, and they're about, you know, they from golf ball size up to basketball size, and they're around and fairly close by, and then when you try to approach them, they go away or they blink out, and then they appear somewhere else. And there's many stories about people getting lost by trying to follow them through the scrub. The Aborigines have various legends about them being a fire stick carried by the ancestors and that sort of thing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, but there's a fine line between min-mins and UFOs, you know.
Yeah, very fine line. And actually, Australia's not the only place I've heard of where people follow the lights, they get lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or it leads them into swamps or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. In the UK, they have that story, don't they? The Will o' the Wisp.
The Will of the Wisp, yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. This fellow mentioned one other very odd occurrence. He said, look, I can't remember if it was exactly the same day or a day or two later, but no further apart than that. He was with the stockman, and the boss of the homestead turned up with their mail. And he said there was a letter from his mother enclosing a magazine article. He doesn't know from what magazine it was from, something that was current in the 1970s. And she said, you might be interested in this. There's a funny story from Ardmore Station. And the story was that there'd been a group of surveyors or linemen or something. They weren't cattlemen, but they were workers, and they were sleeping in tents on Ardmore Station. And two men were sharing a tent. And this Greek guy was grabbed by something in the middle of the night. Like a hairy hand grabbed him by the ankle and started to drag him out of the tent.
Actually, that sounds quite familiar. I think I may have heard that experience before. Yeah. Or read it somewhere.
Yeah, well, I haven't been able to find the newspaper article, the magazine article. You know, I've tried Googling it and everything, but he said, well, you know, this just seems so outrageous because it's something, I mean, they'd just seen a hairy man.
Right.
And then, you know, within either on the same day or the next day or the day after, this letter arrives from his mother.
Yes, interesting timing.
Yeah. Sorry, I got the guy's name here. He's still on the land. So, and there are many, many other stories. I interviewed a lady, Mandy, I'm pretty sure her name was, who saw about a 5-foot-tall Yowie beside the road, just north of Roma in Queensland. Okay, so your name's Mandy, and this occurred, I understand, just recently, a week ago or something?
Yeah, it was actually last Wednesday morning, so just over a week ago. Wow. It was probably about 2 a.m. or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And you were driving along very slowly because of all the roofs, eh?
Yeah, well, they're not really big roofs. They're like little grey roofs, and some of them are really tiny. So, you know, I'm just sort of mindful of wildlife because there isn't quite a lot of respect on the outback roads for wildlife.
Sure.
So, and travelling, you know, in the dark, you just like to be able to stop and let them past or, I was probably going about 40 k's an hour on the road.
Right.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. And what was the? Were you travelling through forest or open country there?
Oh no, I just started to go in like this foresty area. And as I've looked back on a map, there's a particular little forest area around there.
Okay. I should check. I should
probably
check.
About 30, 35 k's out of Roma. There's a little state forest there, and then there's a large one further along. And as I've looked back through the road, like I said, it might be 15, 20 k's, but it appears to be about 30 k's, so I could have been actually there. And there was a lot of trees, and a lot of the larger trees were like dropped to the left side, like the road was built up, and it was just slightly elevated to the right, the trees, as I'm driving up.
Okay, and I understand from your email that you saw this form on the road, and it appeared to be crouched, was it? It was.
Well, it was quite because I had my high beam on. You can see quite a distance along there, and I thought, oh, gee, this is a different colour for a roo. It's quite dark and big, and I thought, because where I come from, we get quite large roos down around Anglesey, so. I slowed right down, and as I'm getting closer, it's like it stood up, and it's just like staring at me, and as I'm getting closer, it's getting more sort of Albany shiny, more reddy Albany colour, and it's just standing there, staring at me like a roo would, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what is that, I have a condition where my senses shut down, so I didn't feel the fear until a couple of days later,
Yeah. All right. And when it was looking at you, was there any eye shine, like with some animals?
Oh, it's very shiny as I got closer with the lights. Yeah, absolutely. It was quite shiny. And it was very hairy, and I actually couldn't see a face. It's like its hair was about, maybe 10 or 50, maybe about 10 centimetres long. It was like it was all over the hair.
Oh, yes.
But, do you know what I mean? Yeah, it was just like... Yeah, it was like all over it. Yeah, like it was like a junior. It gave me the appearance of something that was younger.
Oh, yes. Oh, right.
Do you know what I mean? Like a younger dog or a younger, they're sort of fluffy, like a polar bearish type of hair.
Yeah, sure.
As in appearance.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
What I meant before was when you had the headlights on, were its eyes reflecting?
I couldn't see any eyes reflecting, no. It appeared that either its head was looking down, if eyes are to be seen, and the hair was not. It seemed to be like I couldn't see any facial features.
Oh, yes.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was sort of looking at me just straight on. You've seen the sketch. So, whether its head was like looking down or whether, I couldn't see any shiny eyes at all. No, there was no reflection at all.
Yeah.
No. And I guess what I did, as I got closer, I turned the high beam down because I didn't want anything to jump in front of me, because that's what I do. And then I slowed right down to about 15 k's an hour to have a good look. And I thought, oh damn, because as I drove out of Roma, I had no battery on my phone. I only had about 15 left, and there was no like, what would you call it, no bars on my phone. I thought, oh well, I'll flick it off for a bit and I'll save it till I get to the next town and see if I can get some reception, Sure. And then as I got closer, I thought, I've got to stop and take a photo of this. And then I thought, oh my gosh, if it is Junior, I mean, maybe it's got others. I didn't feel safe, I started to think, no, it's the wrong thing to do.
Yes.
And I started to think, oh my God, and I kept driving up a little bit further past it. And I thought, do I turn around and go back and take a photo, or, it's just extraordinary and so beautiful, you know.
Yes,
Such
yes.
an amazing creature, and I thought, you know, because I've seen the Black Panther in Yowie.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, with a friend of my son's. So I thought, you know, I just had. I thought, what is it? What is it? There must be some information about what I can see, what it is, and. Yeah, I thought, oh, you know, it's something, you know, but it's not something that I've seen before. And it was just standing there looking. It didn't move from side to side. It didn't run. It just stayed there. It appeared to be looking towards me. But like I said, I didn't see any facial features, so I'm thinking maybe it had its head looking down or something. But there was a dead room. A little small dead room on the side of the road.
Right.
And I'm just wondering if it was down there eating or... Because I know with my dog, if I start it with something, it'll just stop.
Yeah.
Before it goes, oh, don't come near my food, or... And I was thinking, you know, if this is in the wild, it could be wild, you know? And I thought, no, it's just not safe to do that. It's not safe to stop.
Yeah.
But I probably saw it for about, I say good 40 or 50 seconds, because I've slowed right down as I've gone past it and had a good look at it and thinking, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Just absolutely incredible, you know.
Right.
And, you know, I'm confirmed that, you know, it does exist and what I saw was real, and I'm blessed to be able to see it. And
yes, you're very lucky.
I then decided to keep on. I mean, actually, it was about 500 metres past, and there was a small kangaroo, probably about 2/3 the height of my car, which is a Volvo XC60. And it was sitting there. It didn't seem to be hit by a car, but the side of its face was hanging out.
Oh, God.
And I felt prompted again to stop and help it. And I said, there's no way in hell I can get out of my car here because I'm not far from where that happened. And I thanked my living stars when about, probably another 3 or 4 minutes up the road where I've gone back up to about 40 k's, I saw a truck coming along and I thought, well, you know, it's probably going to, you know, put it out of its miseries. But I stopped very close and very slow to it and thought, how can I help this animal? But there's no wildlife numbers. I don't know where to take it. And I thought, if I'm going to go out there, I don't know if I'm going to be safe. If that had appeared to be young, I initially thought it was about 4 foot tall, but it could have been about 4.5.
Right.
Yeah, 5 foot tall. Yeah.
Right. Hey, just backtracking, Mandy. So the dead-roo was on the shoulder of the road or on the edge of the road, was it? And where?
It was beside it. When it was facing me, because I'm travelling on the left-hand side of the road, it was just slightly to the right of its body, the little dead roo.
So the Yowie creature would have been standing just on the edge of the bitumen, would it?
It was just on the edge of the road. Yeah, it was just to the right of where the edge of the road is. So it was on the edge of the road, on the opposite side, not on my side. So when I drove past, I looked straight out my window and had a good view, like within 2 metres away, very close.
Extremely interesting. Sounds like you had a bit of an experience there in the Richmond Range, eh?
Did you know that area reasonably well?
No, I don't actually. I know that we've had a lot of Yowie reports from Woodenbong, just north of Richmond Range there. Yeah.
Woodenbong's not all that far away.
Uh-huh.
Now, look, Tony, I'll tell you what happened.
What happened was, not this immediate weekend, it was the weekend before. So what happened was, I've got a property near Boona, and so we drove down to Casino and then went up the Bruxner Highway, and you go out of Casino about 40 k's going west, and you get up to the top of the Richmond Range. And you go in through a national park there for about 20 k's, and you get to a really nice cottage, which is it's up in a cleared area on the range, kikuyu grass, really nice little bloody off-the-grid cottage. Yeah. So we stayed there for a couple of nights, Saturday night and Sunday night, and it's very isolated. It's 20 k's in from the bitumen road. There were two guys on motorbikes the entire time, trail bikes that went past. The only people that we saw in 48 hours. And it's very, it's just in the middle of bloody nowhere, fabulous views and all that stuff.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
on the bloody Sunday night, there was quite a strange bloody noise. I'm sure you've heard possums and koalas with that very loud grunting sort of noise, and I'm sure you've heard cattle. I'm a farmer, and especially bloody cows, when you've separated calves from them, they'll bellow all night.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it was nothing like that. It was nothing like that. It was a sort of a bloody moan, a moany sort of a noise. And it sort of spooked Sue and I a bit because, we thought, shit, that's a bit strange. I wonder if there's someone there,
Yeah.
And I've got and it went a couple of times. There are a couple of these quite loud, low moans. Anyway, I got out with my bloody, I've got a very powerful torch, it lights up to about 500 metres, and I went out into the veranda of this place and just went right around because it's in the middle of the bloody paddock. The nearest trees would be, 150, at least 150 metres away on one side, and then they'd be bloody hundreds of metres away on the other. So, and there was nothing, there was no stock there were no possums, there are no trees there, so there's no possums, no koalas, none of the bloody normal things. And I thought, that's bloody odd. Anyway, in the morning we left, and we left the place about 8 o'clock. So it's a forestry road, a well-graded forestry road, but, I was taking it bloody easily along there and just came out of a patch of really deep bloody primary rainforest into that open bloody eucalypt stuff. And then, here's this, a fleeting figure running across the road. And I thought, shit, what's that? And I immediately said, Sue, hey, you see that? And she said, what? And I said, bloody someone running across the road. And anyway, we pulled up, and it was all over in a couple of, from my perspective, driving, I was watching the road pretty carefully, but then I definitely saw this bloody figure run across the road, and then into some light eucalyptus forest. But I distinctively thought, how strange is that? Because I saw what I thought was an arm going up to brush a branch or something away. Anyway, we pulled up and had a look around, and couldn't see anything, and couldn't hear anything. I switched the car off, couldn't hear anything. And that was about, we reckon it was about 8:20, 8:30 in the morning.
Right.
Because we left that bloody joint at 8, and it took us about 40 minutes to get the 20 k's. It's a pretty average bloody track, So that's sort of what I've got to report. And the bloody smell. the smell, that's right. The smell at that bloody, on the night before, the Sunday night, when I was outside, I could definitely smell something. There was definitely a smell, like a bad BO smell, like someone hadn't had a bloody shower for a few days.
Yeah.
Like there's showers at this place. There's no evidence of, there's no rats there. There's no bloody possums to get into the garbage bins or anything. But I did go in and I said, hey, Sue, it's really bad. There's a feedlot across the road from us on another property back at Boona. And I thought, it smells a bit like that.
Oh, that's bad.
So, So, look, that's all I've got to bloody report,
Oh, it's pretty interesting, David. That's it's got a few.
I'm a reasonably sensible guy. I do a fair bit of shooting on my place here. We had feral dogs and cats and all that sort of stuff. I've got a lot of roos on my place, a lot of wallabies, so it didn't fit that bill,
Yeah.
Like if you see a kangaroo, they've got a bloody big tail that bounces. Wallabies have got a very long tail that keeps straight.
Yeah.
And I didn't see a tail. I definitely did not see a tail. So and it wasn't a bloody koala. It was too big for a koala. And height-wise, I reckon, as I said in that thing to Dean, I reckon it was about the height of a child, like about, I don't know, maybe about 5 foot. I probably should have gone, because I got a reference against a couple of little trees there. Probably should have gone and measured that, but I didn't. So, but that's, Colour-wise, it was, again, a brindley colour. Not the colour of a kangaroo. Not the light. You get those rufous wallabies up there. There's those redneck wallabies. It wasn't that. So yeah.
All right. Did you say? Did you make a guess at the distance in front of the car, the range it was?
Yeah. Look, I'm sitting in my office here. I reckon it would have been probably about 50 metres, 40 metres.
Oh, that's pretty close. Yeah, that's pretty close. I mean,
and where I saw it, we were going down the side. This road follows pretty much along the top of the range, and as it goes around a few spurs, there's some quite the very steep-sided things, and we just come off one of those, and I was seriously watching the road, and then when I actually picked this up, probably the figure was going off the track. I was watching the bloody side, and I just flicked my gaze up, and then I thought, holy shit. And so probably the middle of this track, 15 metres, 20 metres, you could see into the bush.
And okay, so it was fairly upright, was it?
Not like a roo or a bloody wallaby at full speed. They got their heads down, and it was the sort of breadth of it that sort of caught me too. Like it was quite wide, imagine across the shoulders or the body. Because kangaroos and wallabies and things, they're pretty bloody small, really.
Yes. Yeah.
And I thought, shit, this is a bit wide. And I'm looking at it, it was going from my right to my left, and I'm looking at it at an angle of, initially probably an angle of about 45 degrees. Then as I closed up to where it crossed the road, that angle would have changed slightly, but I was probably looking at it, in all honesty, at an angle of probably about 30 to 45 degrees.
All right, yeah. And so did you, I know it was, fairly fleeting, but you noticed a few details there. Did you sort of register the shape of its head or anything about its head or shoulders?
No, I didn't because I saw what I thought was an arm going up to brush this bloody branch away. And and this road's relatively bloody dangerous,
Yeah.
So I drive an XR6 Ute, so I was going pretty slowly. I was probably doing about 20, 25 Ks, that's about the max you could do on this bloody road.
Right.
And so, I saw it and I yelled out to Sue and said, look up down there. And then I didn't slam the brakes on, but I pulled up with my gravel.
Yeah.
And then we bloody turned the engine off, but you couldn't hear any crashing noises, you couldn't hear any noise of, something going through the bush, which you sometimes do with kangaroos and cattle and stuff like that.
Yeah. So your first remark to your wife was you thought maybe it was a bloke who went across the road, or so it was. Yeah. It was sort of roughly human shaped, I gather. Is that right?
Yeah. And I said, "Did you see that?" She said, "Oh, I went, no, I missed it." And I said, "Well, shit, it just ran across the road." I said, "I reckon it's a bloody yowie." She said, "Oh, bullshit." And I said, "No, seriously." Yeah. I said, "It's not. It wasn't hopping." Blah blah blah. I said, "It wasn't a bloody koala. It wasn't like that thing at Black Pinch." Blah blah blah. So that was the conversation.
Yeah. No, it sounds like it ticks several boxes, for the yowie. I mean, the smell, that revolting smell, and the weird moaning. We've heard that before, and then just the man-like shape and running like buggery across the road. I mean, did you notice sort of particularly the legs at all, or?
No, but I definitely had an impression that there were legs, like not legs like a kangaroo, but more an upright. And the other thing was the colour. It was like a brindle sort of brown.
Right.
And that was the thing that sort of shook me a bit.
There was a fellow near in Queensland, if you heard about the Canungra jungle training area in Queensland, it's just in from the Gold Coast in the jungle area there.
Right.
We have several stories from around there by soldiers and also civilians who are driving along on the roads, fringing they call it the Canungra Land Warfare Centre. Anyway, there was a fellow there who this was quite recent, and he was driving in broad daylight, driving a truck. He just dropped off a load of stuff, and he came around a corner, his truck, and he thought, there's a mass of logs or something rolling onto the road. That was his very first impression, a lot of debris or something. And then he realised it was this big hairy creature, and it stood up. And he was practically on it. He'd hit the brakes, came right up close, so close that the thing was standing with its chest virtually against the bonnet of the truck.
Wow.
He told this story quite cheerfully. It was in the media here after Dan Harrison interviewed him, and this thing sort of thumped the front of the truck. And he said it was almost comical. Three expressions across its face. First off was shock, and then anger. I forget what the third expression was. It just thumped the front of the truck. It did, and the top of the bonnet slightly, and turned and walked off. But he said it was really, really huge, like 12 feet tall.
Wow.
And big with it. He did a couple of nice sketches of the face and so on. And he initially didn't want his name used or anything. At first, he didn't even tell his wife, not for a day or so, and then he did. And then he mentioned it to a couple of the other truck drivers, and they, to his surprise, they didn't laugh. They said, yeah, some of the guys say they've seen like that there. And so eventually he went public, but we'd interviewed another guy, Mr. Cook, who saw one in almost the same spot a couple of years earlier, and in that case it had run across the road just in front of his truck, pretty close. It was virtually the same spot.
When you're interviewing these people, Tony, I guess you're very aware of their body language and demeanour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so most of these people you've interviewed, how do they appear when they're talking about their experience? Because usually when you're talking about an experience like that, you tend to feel those feelings again.
Yes. Well, a lot of them relive the terror. They often say, "Oh, the goosebumps are coming up on my arms again, and the hair on the back of my neck is standing up just recalling it." As far as I'm concerned, 95% or more of the witnesses are clearly telling the truth.
Right.
There might be a small proportion that fantasy prone or who might have been perhaps mistaken, but that's why we like multiple witness count. So I think in our book, Yowie, we had 300 reports, and 100 of them were more than a single witness.
Right.
And around 50% of the sightings are in daylight.
Mm-hmm.
So, that reduces the chance that people are mistaken.
Right.
And of course, the similarities in the reports over the course of 150 years too is quite striking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Australia's geographically such a huge, huge country. Where would you feel that most of the sightings tend to be based? Like, are they towards the coast or are they towards the centre of Australia?
Well, most of our reports come from the eastern seaboard, within 100 kilometres of the coast or 200 kilometres of the coast.
Right.
There's the coastal area, the coastal forests and mountains, the Great Dividing Range, and what they call the western spurs of the Great Dividing Range. So from right up Cape York, right down into Victoria and around. But there are reports, and there is a lot of Aboriginal Yowie lore from way inland as well.
Right.
It's just that, as you know, in Australia, only a small fraction of the population lives in the inland, in the outback. There's, the vast majority live east of the Great Dividing Range. So where there are more people, I suppose, there's more people who might see them.
True. That's a valid point. I know I was at Uluru about a year and a half ago, and the distances, I can't get my head around the vastness of the place. It was just beautiful. But while I was there, I was thinking, man, this would be such an easy place for something like the Yowie to hide away from people in.
Yeah.
It's so vast.
Sure. Yeah. Yes, and there are stories. We have a few reports from the Northern Territory there in the inland, and some Aboriginal lore. But see, if I'm right, I got this outrageous idea that I admittedly share with a lot of people that there's in some way paranormal. They could appear anywhere, I suppose.
True.
They seem to be honestly. Identical. They seem to be exactly the same creature that they have in Canada and the States. there's very little difference between the Australian reports and the North American ones. The Himalayan Yeti reports, well, there's a lot fewer reports, so it's hard to tell. Same with down in Malaysia, very similar, and New Zealand too. It's hard to say. It's mainly Maori law, isn't it?
Well, there's been a number of sightings over like this past century. There's been a lot of sightings, and mostly the ones I've seen certainly correlate with what you say. Ape-like figure, tall. Sometimes there's an obnoxious smell with them.
Oh, right. Oh, I haven't heard that. Of course, I only scratched the surface when I was in New Zealand.
Right.
That story that you recorded by that lady, was she Maori? I assume she was Maori.
Yes.
Yeah. As you know, the elements in that were very similar. The feeling of being watched.
Yes.
That is very common. People feel that something's watching them, and then they turn around and lo and behold, there's a hairy ape man. And that other details you mentioned, the thing pacing the boat,
right,
by keeping up with the boat. That's so common. Of the Yowies coming along beside a track, when people are walking down the track, the Yowies just a little bit back and just pacing them, or keeping up with cars. Running along beside cars. So I was very struck by her sighting. That was great. That was the lower Wanganui, right?
Yes, correct, yes. That was fascinating. Of course, there's a lot of Maori lore around that area about the Moehau man. I can't remember if that is the term the local iwi or tribe use in that region. Different regions in New Zealand have different names for it, but yeah, that was a really, really interesting account, I thought.
It was a good one, yeah.
I remember when I was about 6, must have been about 6 or 5, we went for a school trip. I went used to go to a little school that's down near Wanganui River. And we went for a school trip on the riverboats to go and see the Bridge to Nowhere, because it's a pretty long walk inland, so it's only half an hour walk from the river. And at the time, my uncle, he was running a business with the riverboats, and so he took our school up there. School's only about 10 kids. And so it wasn't like, thousands of kids trying to take them up a river. Well, anyways, we went up there, and I don't know, I just had this really eerie feeling like someone was watching me. And I kept on saying to Mum, because Mum came, and I kept on saying to Mum, there's someone in the trees watching. I can feel them. I can't see them, but I can feel them watching. And Mum's like, don't be silly, because, you don't want to scare your kids. She totally believed me, though. I could see that she could believe me. I'm pretty sure she could feel it too. And I kept on saying to my uncle, I said, there's somebody in the trees watching. He goes, don't worry about it. It's fine. It's just in the trees. And well, anyways, we went up to the Bridge to Nowhere, and it was fine when we got off the boat and went up and had a look at the Bridge to Nowhere. And it's really beautiful up there. I totally recommend going to have a look. And well, anyways, we were on our way out. We were back on the riverboat, and I could feel this thing watching, and I could see it sort of like running in the trees, following the boats down, because we were going really slowly because it was in the middle of summertime, and so the river was quite low, so the bottom of the boat was scraping along the rapids, and so we're going really slowly to not punch a hole in the bottom of the boat. And well, anyways, I could see this hairy gorilla-looking thing running along, and it was black. And I don't know, I just felt really uncomfortable about it. Like, I just didn't want to stop. We couldn't stop. And I kept on telling Uncle, and I was holding on to him and squeezing him for dear life. I said to him, you can't stop this boat. And we got a bit stuck on a rapid. And I said, don't stop. I was freaking out. And anyways, this thing was standing there just looking at us. And we got the boat going, and it was just absolutely, truly terrifying. And my uncle saw it. My mother saw it. I don't know about anybody else. I don't think they saw it, but yeah, it was only because I could see it and I noticed it, and it was, I don't know, it just felt so freaky. I didn't like it. Its energy, I didn't like the way how it was running after us. It just felt like that was protecting something, and it just really didn't want us to be there. Yeah. It was really tall, like the tallest person who I know. It's like 6 foot. It was taller than them, what I could see, what I remember. And I don't know, I just remember him, it had like black fur, and I don't really remember much more. I don't really remember its face. I was just a little kid. I just remember just the feelings I had about it, that I was actually really terrified, and I didn't want it to come anywhere close to me.
As I said, my knowledge of the Moehau is not that great, but my friend Paul Cropp is a great researcher, and before I went to New Zealand, he Googled everything he could, and dug up a lot of those reports by the early colonists. Said, the Murray say that there's these Lower Wanganui that will grab people out of canoes, and
right.
So I tried to go to as many of the areas as I could when I was there, but I never found. I spoke to few Maori, and never spoke to a Maori who knew anything about the hairy ape man.
Yes.
But I knew there must be some.
Mm-hmm. I was actually doing an episode. It was the big cats that got me started on it.
Right, there you go.
And then it got me into like the Moehau, the Patiparehi, which are other New Zealand fairy folk.
Oh, yes.
The Taniwha, which are our...
Oh, yeah, lake spirits, river spirits.
Yeah, monsters that live in the lakes. Guardians, some call them, kaitiaki.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very interested in that,
Yeah. So you've written 3 books and you're working on a 4th book. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you please tell us about your books? I know one of your books is currently out of print, which is a real shame. I was looking at it online and it had such good reviews, and people were saying in the comments that, why can't you bring it out in digital format or get it reprinted?
Yeah, we should. It's awkward, dealing with a big publisher. If it was the fellow who did our second book, and the anomalous books in the States, Patrick Yowie, he's a friend of ours, and he, reprint anything we ask. But the first book, that was 1994, that was Out of the Shadows, Mystery Animals of Australia. And as you gathered, we have half a dozen chapters: the serious big cats, the Yowie, the water monsters, the bunyip.
The bunyip's comparable with our taniwha here in New Zealand.
Yeah, a lot in common. And the Tasmanian tiger, does it exist in Tasmania, and does it exist on the mainland? And what was the other one? The Queensland marsupial tiger cat.
Is that a thylacine?
Thylacine is the Tasmanian tiger. But this striped cat-like thing from Queensland was described as being, just like that, like a small tiger. Anyway, so that was the first book, and then the second was Yowie, In Search of Australia's Bigfoot. That was 2006. I think really that's our best book. That is, we devoted so much time and effort to it, and we documented 300 reports.
Wow, that's a large number.
Yeah. All the possible explanations and the Aboriginal law that we knew. So we're proudest of that. The third book was Australian Poltergeist, which we wrote because we had an experience with a poltergeist infestation in the Northern Territory in 1998, the Humpty Doo episode. We, as they say these days, we were embedded in the house with the people for 5 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were very good. They said, yeah, stay here if you like. Or, we stayed there one night and had a cabin around the corner. But we went there every day, and we saw a lot of phenomena that couldn't be explained naturally. There were objects appearing in midair and seemingly coming through the ceiling and coming out of walls and flying around. So we became interested in poltergeist activity big time after that, and we collected 50 other cases, 1845 through to modern times, and so we compiled them in our third book, Australian Poltergeist. Then we got the idea of doing a second book on the Yowie, incorporating the hundreds of additional cases that we got onto, largely through Dean Harrison, Australian Yowie Research, and sort of floundering around with that book for the last, 5 or 6 years. And we keep getting distracted. I'm also keen to finish my memoirs because all the different things I've looked at over the years. So, because as I keep saying, I'm 74 now, and friends of mine are dropping off the twig, everywhere. I'd like to just get it all down,
Yeah.
I have the manuscript largely written, but it needs a lot of work and attention, so I'd like to get to that.
I can understand that. And you've been doing this for over 40 years, and obviously it's been a consuming passion for you, like it is for me. I mean, I absolutely love this. I got into this when I was about, 13 or 14. I first heard about spontaneous human combustion, which is my episode that just played a short while ago.
Oh, sorry, what's the one about?
Spontaneous human combustion.
Oh, yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So your goal is to finish this book you're working on with Paul Cropper. When do you think you might possibly have that finished by?
Well, I'm going through a bit of a sort of period of semi-despair about it. I don't think we'll get it done this year. I'll be seeing Paul in a couple of weeks, but I reckon probably mid-next year.
It'll be ready for the publishers?
Yeah.
Tony, thank you very much for your time today. It's been a very, very interesting chat. I'm sure my listeners have enjoyed it as much as I have. So thank you very much for your time today.
Oh, thank you. It's been very enjoyable. A pleasure talking to you, Marianne. Yeah, talk to you again soon.
In this episode, we've heard of a number of people's experiences in encountering the Australian Yowie, and of course those barely scratch the surface of the experiences he has heard. I encourage all of you to go out and check his books out. They're beautifully written, and if you have an interest in this subject, then so worthwhile adding to your collection. I realise that this episode is much longer than normal one, but Tony is such a fascinating gentleman to talk with, and he was kind enough to share these interviews with witnesses with us that I felt it was worthwhile doing the longer time frame. Whether or not you believe in the existence of the Yowie, the Bigfoot, the Moehau man, or whatever other name this being goes by throughout the world, these witnesses and experiences can certainly make us all question our current understanding of whatever may coexist with us on this beautiful world of ours, and in my opinion, that's not a bad thing. This episode's bumper music is called Goddess Dance by SacJoe22. Licensed under Creative Commons. For more information, check out this episode's page at www.walkingtheshadowlands.com. If you have any suggestions for topics you might like me to cover in upcoming episodes, then please don't hesitate to contact me. Or if any of you have any questions, suggestions, or any comments that you'd like to make, or experiences that you might like to share with myself or my audience, then just email me at shadowlands@yahoo.com. Check out our Facebook page, Walking the Shadowlands, our Instagram feed of the same name, and our Twitter feed at Shadowlands10. Like and follow for hints on our upcoming episodes. If you enjoyed this episode, then please leave a positive rating and don't be shy to leave a written review on your chosen podcasting platform or on the podcast Facebook page, Walking the Shadowlands. Who knows, you may hear your review read out at the end of one of these podcasts. And of course, so you don't miss out on any episode, make sure you subscribe on your favourite podcasting platform. This podcast is available on all free podcasting platforms. If you don't have a smartphone, then you can listen to the episodes from the podcast website, www.walkingtheshadowlands.com. For those hearing impaired, there's a full written transcript of each episode on the website, so you don't miss out at all. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your workmates about our show. Encourage them to listen and to subscribe also. The more, the merrier. Thank you so much for listening today, tonight, whatever time it is, wherever you're living in this beautiful world of ours. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Thanks for listening.